All right, we're recording.
All right, great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great day of learning something new with Dave Walker. Today is going to be different. We're going to start to get down into the real nitty gritty of this business of bottled water. As most of you know, I have been in the bottled water game for about 7 years now, and I'm at the high level, the truckload level, if you will. And being at the truckload level, there's certain things that comes with it, certain responsibilities that comes with being at the truckload level. One is which you have to sort of understand how truckloads are bought and sold in America. You have to understand how bottled water moves in America. And today we're going to take you a little bit into how that works. So we will have our presentation for about 35, 40 minutes. This is a picture presentation, so no one's going to be able to, don't need to read. You can just sit back and watch. There'll be no notes unless you write notes yourself. You don't want to give our secrets away. But instead, I'm going to take you through a picture-tory, if you will, of the history of our brands, being integrity as well as positivity. Before we get started, however, it's always important to realize that I am an attorney, and as long as I'm an attorney, I'm going to care about the law. And in this case, we are subject to the laws of the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, and we're going through a crowdfunding right now. And this is an investment opportunity. This is not a donation-based platform. However, until we have all of our appropriate filings with the SEC, a lot of this is just information, and also your investment pledge is an indication of interest. You will not have to actually commit to the company until such time as the Form C is filed and your offer documents to do so. Having said that, we move on. So when I first started to think about the bottled water business, I started to figure, what's the best way to brand something? Because before you can even get into a product, you have to understand how to brand it. So in this case, I decided that, sitting down with my kids and said, hey, I want to start a company. They came up with the name Star Walker Industries. But I said, I'm really interested in a name for a specific product, bottled water. So my kids came up with Wade the Water Drop. This was going to be Wade the Water Drop that was going around and going to promote Star Aqua Bottle, Star Aqua Water, and this was a very cute start. So I think that it's important that people understand that some of the things where you end up in life isn't always where you started. And you'll see a little bit of theme throughout this discussion today. And oh, by the way, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. And then Shar can sort of let me know if there's any person that has questions, and she can interrupt me accordingly. But anyway, in starting that, I started to see that, if you spend time with real designers, and you spend time with people who really specialize in what they do, you can actually come up with better logos, better designs yourself. So even though you might start a project as the sort of the lead of it, it's always good to know. And so we came up with the name Integrity. I thought we were using that in our household a lot at the time. Felt like it represented who we were as a family, and that became the start. When I talked to the bottled water manufacturer and you say to them, hey, can I get my bottled water private labeled? You can go to private label companies throughout the United States who private label bottled water and give them a design, and they'll do it for you. The only problem you have is what is the quality of the bottles that you have. So the thicker the bottles, the higher their production rate, the higher it takes to blow those bottles out. And when you see a thick bottle, that suggests that they are being a little bit more energy inefficient when it comes to water. So highly efficient plants use less plastic to generate their product. So my manufacturer, who is a large plant, they use a very effective and efficient process to make Integrity. That's why the bottle is very thin, the cap is very thin, and when you get the bottle, you can actually crush to conserve it. People don't know that, but you can crush this bottle, you put the cap back on it, and almost literally crush it. The cap here, you can actually bend. So this is a low PET bottle. It's still PET1. It still gets recycled. But if you want to play with a manufacturer who can create that much product for you and ultimately produce you a case, then you have to talk to the right manufacturer. If the manufacturer has thicker bottles and they're in a smaller market, then you probably won't have national distribution because you'll spend so much money on your bottling process. So in this case, they came up, I said, I love your bottles, I love your bottling process, I love your manufacturing. And so they come up with a mock-up. Say, this is the mock-up of your case of water that you're going to have produced in volumes, significant volumes. So again, they take a little bit of what you've done with your design. You sit down with graphic people, people who are professionals in this, and you start to design the bottle. You get your mark trademarked and file your registered trademark. That's important too, because ultimately you're going to spend a lot of time marketing your brand or product. So you want to make sure you have the proper protections. And this is the phase in which you have to make sure all that is done before you actually get to the market. So that's what we had to do with integrity. Then ultimately they'll send you samples. So in this case, they said, okay, Dave, we designed the case, we designed the label. I'm going to send you some cases. Send you some samples. So you get samples like this in which you'll be able to touch and feel and decide if this is the right quality. Is this the right type of product? Does this look okay? And this process from when my kids do that drawing up till now is probably about 4 months. So I skipped a long process in between of going back and forth with the designer, going back and forth with the plant, trying to negotiate which plants are you going to make a commitment to and which ones can make a commitment with you. But ultimately you get to a place where you get a mock bottle. Again, you don't have the full thing yet, you just have a mock. And that was the time I was most excited. That's when you think you made it, right? You get that mock, you're holding it in your hands like, yeah, I made it. Look at me, attorney holding these water. I got this mock up. I'm coming for you, world. That was 2014. Okay, so that was 7 years ago. And I did not have hair then. So we know that I did not lose my hair because of this situation. I just didn't have it then either. But yeah, I think about me at that time, and I just felt like this is where we're going. This is going to be the future. I feel like it's coming. We had a big party. I invited my family and friends in, and we had a little opening and said, hey, Integrity Water's coming out. Star Walker Industries is coming out. Let's let everybody know. And then the truckload pulls up. And I'm super excited. I'm taking this picture. That brother down there, he's getting the truckloads ready because we're receiving our first orders of Integrity bottled water, right? Everything that I've seen. And this truck drivers, they're not really supposed to touch your product. All they do is open the door and you have to get the product off of the truck. And so they open the door, they back up against the dock, and then you have to get the product off the truck. And you walk into the truck and you see all of this water. So all of a sudden, the 3 bottles that was in your office is much different. This is actually a truckload, 19 pallets of spring and purified water. This is what it looks like inside. So I received this load, and as soon as I saw this load, I almost threw up. The reason I almost threw up is if you look at this does not look like the case that we designed. This is what's called a clear wrap. So what they did is they made 24 pack of water and they put a clear wrap on it. And so the case wrap was clear. And that was very, very annoying. And I was upset. And I was like, hey, I can't sell this. This is a bunch of clear water. And in fact, not only did they give us clear cases, they put the pallets in sideways. So a lot of times when you go from dock to dock, you have these forklifts that can pick up a pallet from the front or from the back. So you'll see in this photo on the bottom left, that's a pallet jack on the left that we had. And on the right is a forklift that we did not have. So we had to rent a forklift to get these pallets off the truck because they put them in sideways. So that was 2 things I learned in my first truckload order. One is that if you don't get the numbers and the descriptions right of the truckload you order, they'll make what you say. Now, in this case, I did get the description right. They just made the wrong product, and it was our first time out. The second thing I had to tell them is that, hey, you're bringing it to a dock that does not have a forklift. Therefore, you need to straighten out the pallets so we can get them off the truck. Otherwise, I had to rent that forklift, which that was not fun either. And that brother was not happy because he had to sit there for 3 hours on a job that should have really been about 15 minutes because he had to wait for me to go get a forklift, put it in stock, etc. What was interesting though is my first option was to tell the manufacturer, I don't want it, send it back, right? Is to tell them, look, I got all this water, and they said, no, whatever you do, Dave, and we know this is a new relationship. Do not send that trailer or truck back. I was like, what do you want me to do with it? And it's like, get rid of it. I was like, get rid of it. And they're like, yeah, it's free. It's on us. Get rid of it. Use it for whatever. But we'll have your next truckload coming in 10 days. So I had 19 pounds of water that I had to get rid of in 10 days to make room for the next truckload because I don't have enough room for one truckload. So I spent 10 days giving water to anybody who would listen. Now, I know most of you are thinking, well, I wish that was me. I would have come pick up water. Well, one pallet is almost 2,000 pounds. So that'll bust your axle if you had a small car. So it's not that easy, but we actually did a good job. We took a lot of it to food banks around town in Atlanta. We had people come pick it up. We donated it to kitchens. Everybody who you could possibly imagine. A lot of the business organizations came around. Anybody who was doing baseball events, softball events. I had an APB out for anybody who wanted water. We donated a ton to our school, at our kids' school at the time, and it was a little bit. It was way before Flint, but it was the first time where people were like, "Oh wow, the Walkers are into water." So eventually, we got rid of it, and the proper case came along. So this is when we started to say, okay, this is how a truckload should look. These are how the cases should be wrapped. And you can see the difference. These are covered now and are branded outside. Now this case can be placed on the shelf. You can buy a 24 pack. So you might ask Dave, why would they even make a truckload of unwrapped case? It's because a lot of people don't need that wrapping. If you're ordering for your construction site and say you're a construction company and you're ordering truckloads of water, you don't need that extra wrapping, that consumer wrapping. So you'll take the clear wrap because you just need the actual product itself. But most of us who are in the consumer market need to have the 24 pack wrapped on the outside. So we started to then move that in where we placed the old one. You can see the difference already in terms of the color and the ability to understand what the product is without looking at the individual label. The bottle inside is still the same, but that looks a little different. And then we started getting this water out to people, to the homes, letting people try it. Then one of the things you have to do, though, is you have to still sell this by the truckload. One of our customers had already ordered, we had already sold truckloads, even though our first truckload didn't arrive until, a couple months later. We had already started selling truckloads. This is one of the truckloads we sold to a distribution company here in Atlanta. So I drove my wife and kids up to this distribution center, and they actually sell products to Chinese restaurants, forks, knives, etc. And this place had our full truckload there. It was the first time that you can take it from, oh, this was an idea on paper, to now all of a sudden a full truckload is at a distribution center. And so that was a really big moment for me and my family, because it was now like not just this, not weighed the water drop, to now having a truckload inside of a warehouse. So what they do at this distribution center is they take this truckload, they break it down, and they send it to different people and within their distribution networks. I don't know who those people are, and it doesn't matter because they've already bought this truckload for me. So just to give you an idea, that's a truckload of water. So one of the things you have to do then as well is you have to sell. How do you sell truckload waters? Well, there's different co-ops. There's people out there that have these union of distributors that work together. And then there's union of distributors, which sort of go through and make sure your company is, certified, has all the insurances. They'll look at your product, have you send them samples, make sure you can deal with the volume that you're going to sell to their customer. And then they'll have these shows where you come and you present your product, and people who buy from these large shows will come to this show and say, oh, I need the water for my program. How much do you, how much is it? How much can you do? And a lot of it is, hey, we do truckloads. There are sometimes you can do less than truckloads. That means like less than 19 pallets if somebody's reasonably close to where we have it produced out of one of our plants. But for the most part, at these conferences, you sit back and you tell them about your product and how efficient you are and how you deliver your product and all these services you can provide. And then they make buying decisions at them. So that's what we did. And that's what we've been doing for the last 7 years with Integrity, attending these sort of shows, talking and engaging with customers, getting to know them, and getting to kind of feel for what are the things that drives them to buy Integrity, what drives them to buy our product, what does our product compete against, where on the market should you be pricing your product to compete with other people, how are they going to schedule their freight, are we going to schedule their freight, are they going to schedule their freight? So that's what Integrity has been doing, is selling truckloads that we do not see. You happen to see that truckload because I ordered a truckload here at our location so that I can give away for donations and also to mail off to people who want, or distribution partners who want sample cases. But for the most part, our truckloads go from the plant directly to our customers, and we order the freights and the semis to pick them up and deliver them to the customers. But we keep some here in Atlanta for occasion. So if you guys have any events this summer, anything that needs some water, we have our Integrity brand now in stock locally. So reach out to us, because we still support the kids. And this is the brand that people can go out and freely hand out to the kids, and make sure they recycle, crush the recycle, put that cap back on, put it in the blue bin. So this is our mainstay. This is what's kind of paid the bills over the last 7 years. 2 years ago, I decided to, or 3 years ago, I decided to do a new brand, and that was called Positivity Alkaline Water. Now, again, just like Integrity, Positivity did not start off just being positivity. It started off with some ideas. And one of the first ideas that came to me is I would go to the International Bottled Water Association meetings. They have them once a year. And at these meetings, they would have a few things that they would present to the bottlers across the country. And that's sort of what is the trend in bottled water and what's happening. And at this meeting, I would see things like this, where they would talk about how 1995, Spring was 95% of the market. And then slowly Purified started to penetrate. And now Purified is 65% of the market. What's the difference between Spring and Purified? Well, water from Spring from the ground, water from Purified, spring from your faucet. So the faucet, your municipal waterworks, water filtration, sanitation systems feed water to you. They feed them to these plants. They filter them through a process called reverse osmosis, and they put them into a bottle. So they don't just go directly. They don't have a tap just filling up bottles along the way. It goes through a filtration process, and they add minerals and things like that to balance out the flavor. But that's purified water. In your spring, it comes from a spring. It goes through a similar process, but it's just not as manipulated as much. So that's why they're very similar. And after a while, people didn't want to pay the extra nickel for spring versus purified, or some people started realizing I don't like the taste of spring, or for whatever reason. But purified actually started to grow significantly. Also at this place, they would also talk about a private label, meaning what we're doing is considered sort of private label, is that you used to have all of these branded brands that was out there, like your Dasani and Aquafina. Those are considered branded. But then you'd have private label, and those are people who do production and produce on a per project order on private label brands, and that started growing significantly as well. The last thing that kind of pointed me towards positivity is they had in there this video showing that there is enhanced water that has 4.4% of the market at the time, but that enhanced water also represented 12.5% of the revenue, which means that they're getting more money per product than the purified people are getting. And so because of that, I was like, what is this enhanced water? So they started talking about enhanced water. These are waters that have the same process with some things added, enhancements to it. And this was the beginning of when Essentia was breaking. So anybody who knows anything about alkaline water knows that Essentia is pretty much gobbled up the market. I think Nestle just recently bought Essentia. But Essentia was the leading standard. The Kardashians with their Essentia on TV, anything they touch, it was on TV, is what I'll say. But then they also had other brands. So I talked to my manufacturer and I said, okay, you know what? I think we should develop a brand of alkaline water as well. And so that's began the process. Another thing, though, that happened at this event is that they started to predict that bottled water would pass carbonated drinks in consumption per capita. And if you see that blue line, that's where bottled water was going. And the red line is sort of where carbonated drinks was going. And this was 2015 at that time. So they predicted it was going to happen at around 2016, right? And that actually did happen. I'll show you later. But I saw the rise of bottled water start to significantly pass people who drank carbonated drinks, like your Sprite, Coke, and Pepsi, things of that nature. So again, everything starts somewhere. And this was my first design. I think I probably drew this up at the IBWA when I was thinking about alkaline water and what we had available. And a 9.5 pH is a high pH water. There's no doubt about it. And some people like a high pH water if they're having an alkaline diet. So I started to play with different designs and concepts on what I wanted to do to enforce the pH and what are some of the things that I thought were, driving points and people cared about. And each time I would have alkaline water in a very small place and make it, very minimize it. But then someone was telling me about when you create brands that you want to always create brands that will be so offensive to people who do not enjoy that brand that they will be turned off. So opposite people who don't drink water at all would have to look at this bottle and say, oh, that's clearly water. And I don't want any water. So that's what I decided to do. The first rendition of this of positivity was this. We had a mock-up. I did it. I thought like, oh, this will look nice. And then the bottle showed up. And then I just want to show you how hard this industry is. We're talking about months between that sticky note and getting that bottle in front of me. But when that bottle showed up in front of me and I was so disappointed with it, and I spent so much time and energy drafting it, thinking how it would look, but when you actually get it, it looks bad. It just kind of, you draw back. You're like, man, am I overwhelmed? Am I in the right business? What went wrong? How did we get this so wrong? And you have to go back at it. And so we looked at the label, we turned over the label, we decided to, put some more color into it, hit some core concepts about what we feel, refresh, restore, renew. And we came up with a much better bottle. That's much prettier and looks a lot better and is very clear that it's alkaline water. This is one of our early mock-ups, other samples that has the flat cap too. Some people always wonder, what does the flat cap look like? So that was it. And then like before, we had it delivered. Positivity, because it's sold in an individual bottle, doesn't need the case wrapping that you have in Integrity because a lot of it's sold in the individual. We could, however, move to a colorful case if the market warranted it. But right now we're a grab and go product and it's sold in individual cases. Our cases do have a separate UPS code than our bottles do because some of our customers do like to sell the cases, but each of them have a separate UPC code. So when that truckload arrived, that was the first time that I had ever tasted Positivity alkaline water. And I opened it and I enjoyed the taste. It's so good. It was so refreshing. Like this is not only doesn't have an aftertaste, but it's actually good water. So I gave some to my wife and kids, and we started the process of trying to convince me that I just didn't make a huge mistake going into the alkaline water market, even though I had tons of support from family and friends and other strong people who are into natural health here in Atlanta. They always would ask me about alkaline water. And then starts the same thing before. You have to start to brand your campaign. You have to start to figure out sort of what direction do you want to take with this? How are you going to take your brand from a bottle, but what messaging are you going to provide? And again, sticking with our concept of we want to change minds and build on a mindset, we move to the idea of selling the whole idea of being a positive person, not just raising the pH level of your body, which is literally drinking more positivity, but how can we get across the positivity? So this was some of the early ideas that were thrown out there based upon some preliminary conversations. We obviously didn't go with any of those. Jim Harbaugh was popular at that time. He's still popular, I think. We'll see. This year he gets a pass, I think. We'll see. Anyway, we really wanted to go with the feeling. And the feeling is sort of like, hey, this is your chance to think something different. Now, you don't necessarily going to change people's life with a water, but you can start to say, you know what, just for this moment, I'm choosing to feel a certain way. And then we also concentrate on our core demographic, Black women, who would basically, did everything but push me into this market because of the questions that they asked and the things that they brought about. And so now you start seeing Positivity, however, create a more specific brand than Integrity. Integrity was more focused in on your volume-based business, competing with like, Kroger and Public Waters on your shelves. But Positivity was an enhanced water, the higher pH. It had a different marketing campaign. You have to be much more intentional. We didn't have the truckload distributions because, representing some small percent of the market, a lot of the distributors hadn't heard of it. They certainly weren't ready to pay the prices it takes to you have to pay to produce alkaline water. And so you had to start building your own market internally. So we had photos taken, professional photos of the product so that people that we'd have it for advertising and other things. And then we started doing basically like selling it out your trunk, but we didn't sell it. We just had tastings. So at the office, we had a tasting. We had invited friends and family over. You see a lot of things that I start with like a controlled group of people who aren't going to, embarrass you too much and just tell you, if they think something's good or not. But we hosted them here at the office. We started the process of posting the outrageous goals. This is a derivative of it behind me. But we started the idea of having people come in thinking positive, post up your outrageous goal on the wall, put a colorful sticky note in the wall to represent your outrageous goal. And then just having conversations about the water, just telling them people about alkaline, telling them about positivity, giving conversations and answering questions about the product. I mean, it was still fairly new in 2018. I think it's still fairly new now. I think you probably have one out of maybe 3 people who've heard of alkaline water. So it's getting better. But also incorporating the family. I didn't hesitate to bring my family into this. All of them have separate lives than water, including me, but they do find the time to come in and help where they can and do what we could. And we started by going to the first major event after we received that truckload was the Peachtree Road Race. So we went to the Peachtree Road Race, became a vendor that just passed out water to people who are registering for the Peachtree Road Race. This was going to be our first shot at determining whether this brand was truly going to be something that, me and my family loved, or whether this brand was going to be something that the public could actually touch and feel and like to appreciate. And as we start to talk to people throughout the day about alkaline water and let them taste it, we would say to them, hey, if you like this water and you want the sample, then you give us your email and we'll give you a bottle for free. And after people would taste it, they give us their comment and say, hey, this is what I think about it. It's good. I've never had it before. Tell me more. And we tell them, and I was like, give us your email and I'll give you a bottle. We took 1,000 bottles there. We had 700 emails. And the only reason we didn't have 1,000 is because the other bottles were used for the samples. So that was a strong indication for me that this is not something that I'm just going to say, oh, this is great. This is something that the public was hearing about. We had essential water drinkers come over and tell us that, oh, this is better than my essential. I have this right here. And people would say, well, what's the difference? And they have their bottle they're drinking and they drink alkaline. Like, oh, wow, there is a difference. So that was for me, the turning point of saying like, okay, now we're past, proof of concept. We really got to start to spend more time to get this product in the hands of consumers. But it's still good to have that natural research when you're building a brand. You want to be able to look people in the face, let them give you honest opinions. Nobody at this event knew that I owned the company. We just said we were Black owned and we worked for the owner. We actually gave away a case of positivity. We had a little raffle there. This dude was excited. He was happy to get his positivity. He's like, oh, man. So this is also a way to touch the community and get involved with the community. And people were very supportive of us, very supportive of the water, thought it was very well done. And so we started the process of trying to figure out how to get into retail stores. A lot of these retail stores don't have space for you. They just don't have space for your product, particularly if you have a product that's ours, a little bit tall, 700 milliliters with a sports cap. So you have to offer them sort of fixtures and things that they can use to support your product. If you think that they're just going to come in and just move all their stuff, Snickers out the way, move everything out the way and stick your stuff in the middle, you're wrong. So you have to have a way to kind of let them know that I'm here to help you. I want to support you. I'm going to offer you some other things in addition to selling. So one of our first big breakthroughs was the airport. Poppy's Grill in the airport. They love the water, love the process of it, and we put a stand in there, and they have been doing very well in the airport. So they put us right next to all of their premium waters, and it does just as good. So for us, getting into the airport and now having vendors in the airport as well, look at us, that was huge. A lot of local businesses around have been supporting us over time. Whether it's Atlanta Technical College, the Omni Hotel downtown is a big supporter. We do a lot of, we sponsor a lot of events. We sponsored some events last year. And we have some also local people that we've been working with over the time. And in part of this process, you have to be able to sort of give before you can get. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, and you can't rely on like, oh, every time I sell water, every time I sell a product, I have to make money. sometimes, especially if you have water where repeat customer is kind of drives your market because people like it, they stick with it. You have to be able to say, I'm going to give some things away. We had a booth at the National Minority Business Development Council here in Atlanta, and we had a lot of people come through the booth. We've sponsored some walk runs. So Sisters by Choice is a fight against breast cancer. They have a mobile breast examination clinic, and we sponsored their events, and that was very good. We did a daybreaker, which is kind of a morning exercise. This is pre-pandemic, obviously, but we actually had dollars on there to the left because we would offer them $1 to bring their bottle back to the stand after the event. And this is where we get into the recycling, is that we didn't want people leaving a bunch of bottles all over City Hall. So we said, look, take a bottle, use it today, bring it back, we'll give you $1. What we found is that we had so many returns, but a lot of people were like, I don't really need the $1, but I just love this. I love doing this. And thank you for doing this. And so that's kind of where I started to really see that maybe we can be effective if we start to, bring the community into the recycling process. So as we talk to them about the bottle, we tell them how important it was that the plastic comes back. And then we started setting up free case giveaways on our dock. This is all pre-pandemic, where people could come by, try the product, we give them a case of water, they leave a review or leave their email, etc. And for our local community here in Atlanta. And that also too got our brand out there, and different people who would own stores and shops would come by and go, oh, okay, I like this. And then we give them, a little bit on how we built the brand and all the things that were happening. We also would start then to the recycle bring back program locally, where we said, hey, you take this case, you bring back this case of water to us, we'll give you $3 off your next case. And that also too seemed to set the trend for understanding that the recycling component is here and people want it, and people bring back these cases. And this is not a lot of money. $3 is not a lot of money for you to chase down 15 bottles, but people do it and they want to do it and they force it on their kids. As our brand started to grow, we started to attract even more national attention. In September of last year, we did a big deal with DJ Envy out of New York. Him and his wife came in to be part owners in the Positivity brand and helped to push it. And he's doing very well in the New York market. In the summer, we plan to have a ground team and distribution there. So he's been able to push a lot of relationships from the high level, but in terms of ground, you have to be on the ground in New York. So we got a ground team coming to New York this summer. And we also have the HBCU market, which he is big into, that he demands that they buy his water. So if you heard Envy on the morning show, he's coming for the HBCU market. And DJ Chaotix out of Dallas, he's a DJ down there, and he's actually been pumping the brand. He had a few events. We signed him up. City Trends came on board as well. They're an urban retailer. We're in soon to be 300 stores. We're in 100 stores now, and they've been a huge proponent of Black businesses. And I think that in general, Positivity Water is still very much on its way and growing very rapidly. We were able to establish a merchandising brand. So we have merchandise in our store. So a lot of friends and family have bought some hats or a hoodie or jackets or whatever you want. You can buy this fine hat in our store. So it's been fun, to see friends buy things and see friends wearing your stuff. So it's been cool, but I think it's part of your branding. People like your brand, they'll start to invest more in it. So we have the ability to invest in positivity. You have the ability to actually buy positivity. You have the ability to buy some sweatshirts and gear. So you go through our store, you'll see all that. And then we started the process now of videoing everything. So now it's not just about who we are, but we've been doing more and more videos. When this thing launches publicly, you're going to start to see a series of sort of commercials. You'll start to see maybe billboards around town. So everything that we're doing for Positivity is designed to continue to tell the story of not just we're a bottled water brand, but we're taking the profits from this bottled water and putting it back into the system, putting it back into the community, and continuing to push that forward. I think a lot of people are looking for something other than what product are you selling to me today? What are you about? How do you feel? And I think Positivity is doing a good job of explaining that for our company. So with that being said, I think I want to show you one of these last slides. This is what I was mentioning. This is from 2021. 2018, 19 last year. But that blue line that was supposed to pass them back in 16, They crushed it. Water is way past carbonated drinks, and it's still going even further and faster. What does that mean? That means when people make a choice in a store, in a restaurant, whatever, between water and carbonated drinks, water is winning. Okay. And if that's happening now, and it started happening in 16 and it's going to get more, you better be involved in water. So this is not going to go away. People are going to sell bottled water. Even if you go on a water strike, everything you take in will still have water associated with it. This opportunity as Star Walkers is to start to say, if I'm going to do this, and if I'm going to go even further in bottled water, I want to have the opportunity to talk to friends and family and people that I know close to say, look, I'm telling you exactly who I am, how I did this, how it's leading up to this, so that you can make a decision about, does Dave Walker and his team have what it takes to grow integrity? Does Dave Walker and his team have what it takes to grow positivity? And do they have what it takes to do manufacturing? So next week, we're going to bring in and have pictures of manufacturing and the plant, et cetera, so that you'll be able to go in and sort of look at how we manufacture and how we do things going forward. But for the most part, we've been able to, really get our model going by focusing in on the current brands that we have. We don't have any plans of making anything bigger, so to speak. So, but for right now, I think that, the brands we have on our table is more than enough to handle. And so I think, Shar, right now we should start with a little Q&A. Do you have anybody who wants to ask a question or has a little a question in the chat box?
No, not yet. I know Stephen said that he's been working with Patrick Wilson to go ahead and get some water out to some events that he has upcoming. So I don't know if Stephen wants to unmute and tell us a little bit about that. But I think that you did a really good job explaining our overall distribution process. David, just a quick question for you. What is the most exciting thing that you found that's happened in the difference between starting off with the Integrity brand and then transitioning into the Positivity Alkaline brand? Is there a highlight for you in between there?
You said a highlight in transitioning from Integrity to Positivity?
Positivity. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
From
the margins. The margins are significant. So when you look at the margins that you make on, Integrity, you're probably talking about, on a case, you could be arguing between, 15, 20 cents sometimes can make a difference between a good sale and a bad sale. With Positivity, it's much different. I mean, you have a lot more flexibility. One is the hard part is it's new to the market, alkaline water. And then two is that, it costs more to produce. It costs more to, bottle. So therefore you got to try to make for that adjustment. But in that adjustment, the purchasers who understand the value of what you're doing, they're the ones who typically will say this price is worth it, given the health benefits or given the reasons that I want to buy this product. So given that, I actually felt that too. Positivity would be better played in our community than the Integrity, because Integrity is like you can find those sort of competing products, in supermarkets right next to them. And most people who get the 24 pack of Integrity are looking to, have a picnic or a weekend event, and they got kids there. They don't want to give them this expensive bottle that they're going to halfway drink up, etc. So they say, I want to get the 24 pack for my family or for whatever. That's never going to go out of style, not a business, but it's a commodity-based business. You will literally look at 3 packs of 24 pack, and if one is 1 penny off the other one, even if it's a different wrapper, you're going to buy it because you're like, it's just water. And that's just the way that market is. That's not the way it is with alkaline water. People are very picky, and who's finding that out too is Costco and all these big superstores who try to just get an alkaline and throw a label on it, and they're realizing that that's not how that works. People care about that kind of water. They don't just go, oh, Costco makes alkaline water, I'll buy that. Now, are they going to sell? Of course they're going to sell, but those same companies are going to keep Positivity off the shelf until they're convinced that theirs doesn't sell, or until somebody tells them you need to have Positivity on your shelf. And that's really where we've been. We've been on sell it out of your trunk mode in terms of, getting it out to people so that we can drive the conversations with those companies. Because right now they think that their product is better on their shelf than yours. And that's true with anything, though. I'm not making fun of them and positivity. I'm just saying that that's how they work, is that they're going to sell their products more than they sell your products. So your job is to sort of drive the public, drive the people, drive the consumer base, drive the fanaticism to their stores, to their store managers, saying, how come you don't have alkaline water? This positivity alkaline water is so good. I would buy it here all the time. That's what's starting to happen. That's what we're starting to see with some of our sales team and the engagement that's happening. You know, distributors who didn't want to talk before are like, oh, I understand you have alkaline water now. It's a funny story. We just recently had a video conference with a gentleman, and I don't know what state he was in. I would just call it a Midwest state. And he's like, well, I don't know much about alkaline water. And he had a big sign behind him talking about like how he was always angry or something. So he was very put off by the whole thing. Then he goes, I tell you what, I got one of my young guys coming in here. And if you can convince him that we should get this alkaline water, then I might consider it. And he hands him a bottle that we had already shipped to him. He goes, oh, alkaline water. I had this. I love this. I work out at the gym. They had some down there. They have what is Essentia. No, but yeah, this is good. Let me see. And he goes, I go taste it. He goes, right now? I'm like, yeah. I opened it and then he puts it up and he drinks it. He goes, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And I text to the guy. I'm like, hey, not bad sales guy, right? It works. So I think that there's still a lot of that, though. People trying to come around to alkaline water and what it does and its benefits, but it's growing. I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. I've been drinking it exclusively since December of 2017, 18, something like that. So I'm not saying I'm a throbbing bastion of health, but I have not passed away. That's all I can really say. Every day you're just gonna say, did I pass away today? Nope. Okay, it's gonna be a good day. So I enjoy it. So hopefully that answers the question about how to transition.
So another question is, can you tell us more about why recycling is so important to you and the impact you feel you can make when you're recycling with your recycling program locally?
Yeah, so the recycling component of it really didn't hit me at first. It just became a byproduct as I started to look at the process. So how did it hit me? It hit me because one, I have a Google alert on my phone that says bottled water plants, and I've had it on my phone for a long time. And I always want to ask myself, what is the downside of every business? One of the first things I started seeing was challenging to the natural resources that the big companies were using, pulling water, spring or otherwise, from people's system and sending it out. Nestle had a big fight in Michigan. They had another big fight in Florida about people getting upset that they're getting permits to pull this water. So seeing the water issue become so prominent in terms of the resource, but also the plastics. You know, if there was negative comments about anything associated with our company, it was like, oh, I don't do plastic. And I was like, well, you can't really deliver it through paper and aluminum and bottles because you pay $1 million. But there's people who have a certain way about plastic. And when I looked at those same companies and go, what are they doing about plastic? And you look on their site, they'll say, oh, we got a recycling program and we have this and we have that. But my engineers would tell me, they said, Dave, you know what's interesting? I said, what's that? And they're like, you can actually recycle this bottle. People don't know that. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have recycling bins outside. I mean, we recycle. They're like, no. This PET, the quality of this PET that we use to produce this bottle is so good that if you put it back together, then you can make another bottle again. I'm like, I don't really understand. And I'm like, no, when you throw the bottle away, and you put the bottle into the blue container even and not throw it away, it gets mixed in with all this other stuff. So it can never become the kind of plastic we need in our industry to make a bottle again. We need a different kind of plastic. And I'm like, oh, and they're like, yeah, we need this kind of plastic. This is a mixture of what's called post-consumer resin or recycled and virgin PET. And it's like, this is the kind of thing that we need in our industry. And if we got more people to just bring the bottles back together, they could do it. And they actually showed me a couple plans they presented to some major supermarkets about having a PET1 collection. It's called PET1 because that's the type of plastic this is, the triangle with the one in the middle. And it's like they wanted to have companies collect it. And they all thought they were crazy. Like, we're not a waste company. We're not collecting the PET. And so I started thinking like, man, why don't we collect the PET? And we can't collect the PET from our integrity customers because they're far gone before we even touch them. And to positivity, we have our program here, but if you don't live here, you get it shipped out of state, good luck. But when I was also talking to them about the plant, I looked at them and I was like, we're going to change this. I was like, we're going to have a return facility. And they're like, what do you mean? We can't produce post-consumer resin here. I'm like, no, we're not going to produce that. We're going to at least get the bottle back and put it into the stream that produces this. So we won't initially just be melting plastic and putting out new preforms at our plant. We will be collecting them in what's called a baler and putting them together and then shipping them on to people who are in our industry who do grind them up and ship them out. So from that perspective, I think it's important to understand that the recycling is an ongoing mission. We're going to try our best and keep going at it by offering an incentivized return, offering people money back. But I strongly believe that if people understood more about plastic, then they wouldn't put all the world's plastic problems on bottled water. The problem is the people and the companies that sell to those people and the way they've been advertising those sales to them. That's not the way to consume, to keep plastic in a closed loop system. And if everybody brought their water bottles back to their manufacturer they bought it from, there would be no need for newer plastics, is what I'm saying. You don't have to have as much virgin material if you have more recycled material, and we don't have a lot. We don't have a lot of recycled plastic. We just don't. And it's because it gets mixed in with other stuff. And instead of people having honest conversations about this is how it works, they just continue to push the same narrative. But I do believe we're going to change it. I don't think it's going to be the world ending changing, but I think it'll wake people's eyes up. I think it'll make major corporations' eyes up to say, man, what are we doing to get back our packaging? You might have seen it on some of the TV, like Nature Valley just had a program that they ran where you can bring their Nature Valley wraps back to the store. You start to see more and more people realize, but they want you to put it in the right container when you bring it back. They don't want you to throw it into anyone. They probably got a Nature's Valley like place right here so they can keep the recyclables with what they bought. And consumers have to be more honest with themselves. You can't just throw something in with a bunch of other stuff and think it's being recycled. You need to separate it. People who know cycling know you need to separate the plastics. Learn this as a kid. Separate the plastics, separate the metals. Just no one started to do it because it was expensive to transport. But if you keep it local, I think local people can bring the bottles back to Atlanta. They might not bring them back to Wisconsin, but they'll bring them back to a local place. Or like what I saw at Daybreaker, they'll give it to an organization that could use the money and they have kids that bring it back. So that happens a lot too.
So Dave, I have a follow-up question for you. On your recycling program, I know in New York City, it was a 5-cent deposit. What is your plan for the recycling for the bottles of Positivity Alkaline Water?
Yes, so it's important to understand we are not a deposit program. All the deposits you have are instituted by the states, and the states have enforced those deposits, and there's regulations behind it. There's regulations with us when we send bottles to deposit states. This is not that case. This is a case in which we have a corporate sponsor paying for the bottles to be returned. So we have a price built in to our bottles, which still make us profitable, but where we also have a cash reserve that is designed to pay people back to bring back the bottles. So this is a corporate return that we're paying for. It's not mandated by the state. And it's important that I say that because there will be people at the IBWA that would be mad if I said like, oh, this is a self-imposed deposit. It's not a self-imposed deposit. You do not pay an extra separate deposit when you buy the bottle. You buy the bottle, it is what it is. And then when you bring it back, you'll get 25 cents. And the bottles will all be properly labeled as well. We like to expand the program to bring back other PET1 bottles besides ours as well at some point.
Okay, so we have another question for you that you mentioned Essentia being bought by Nestle. Do you envision the Star Walker Industries brands, any of the brands for Star Walker Industries being sold to one of the bigger beverage companies?
Look, I can talk about this all day. Like I said, I got into this business because I wanted to change the way that people looked at bottled water. I don't know which direction it would go. I can tell you that the growth of positivity and integrity, while that not that unexpected, is still very, humbling to see that these brands have been able to grow themselves and to see that the community that has supported these brands continue to grow. My plan is to build a plant and to focus in on the plant and build more plants across the country and give more communities access, not just to bottled water, but how manufacturing works and how recycling works and things like that. When it comes to those individual brands, they are individual, profit and loss statements, financial statements, they're all individually run separate than the the manufacturing plant. That being said, I have an outrageous goal for Super Bowl team. And if somebody, Coke, Pepsi, came over and said, hey, I want to buy Positivity or to buy Integrity, unless they can trade me a Super Bowl team, I don't plan on it. So, I mean, I think the idea is, it's too early to think about a sell-off of the brands. I think that there is still room to grow. I think that there is a negotiation to be had at some point that makes sense for investors, for me, and for what my outrageous goals are that we could entertain, but not in the foreseeable future. I mean, I don't see it in the next couple of years. There's just so much with the brands that have yet to be achieved. And I think that if someone did buy me out, Shar, or buy us out, it would only be to shelve us. It wouldn't be to promote. So it would just be like, I need to get Positivity out of the way. And so I guess from that perspective, there could be offers being made. I'm not going to sit here and tell you no to everything. And I think that we have to look at our investment opportunities. But for the next couple of years, at least till we get our plant open, you want to at least have a brand around for your plant opening. And now maybe they can buy a plant. Maybe they can do joint ventures. I'm open to everything. I don't want to scare off all my potential suitors out there. However, I tell you what, an NFL team will close the deal. I don't want the money for the NFL team because I'll never be able to buy one. You just want that
Super Bowl trophy.
I want the actual team. No, I want the team. If someone said you want to buy it for some money, I would say, they go, I'll give you the money to buy an NFL team. I would say no. I'll say, you go buy the NFL team first, and then we'll trade. Because I don't trust that even if I have the money, they'd sell me the team.
So David, another follow-up question for me on the plant. So, you're talking about building a manufacturing plant, but we know Nestle and all of the other big competitors out here have these very, very large plants. What makes your plant different than the other plants that are already in existence?
We're significantly smaller. So, for example, Nestle and all those other people could probably spit out that truckload you saw of Integrity or Positivity. They could probably do that in an hour, right? And so they're big, they're efficient, they're gigantic. So the amount of water they supply and can feed, millions per year. Ours is smaller. Ours is designed towards, one line, 32 million units, which is not a lot of units per year. And that's really designed for a local community. So we would just be a small ant to them in terms of production, but we'd be effective and powerful in the local community. And that's how you start off. You start off being small and annoying, but we're not going to touch the volume that Coke and Pepsi and Niagara and all those guys put out. They're not going to come close to it. And guess what? Integrity and Positivity will still be sold separately at higher volumes than even what our plant can produce. This is really about creating something small that can be replicated over and over again in other communities where you have, Detroit water and New Orleans water, and all local places are producing their own and bottling their own water. So I guess over time it could have some effect, but they're so happy, fat and happy right now. They're not worried about Dave Walker.
Okay. So Anthony says that he's been following Positivity brand for a year now, and I'm ready to become a distributor in the DMV area. He said, where should I start? So Anthony, you can just feel free to go ahead and shoot us an email. You can send it to us at office@positivitywater.com, and we'll be happy to give you all of the necessary information to get you started as a regional distributor. So thank you very much for that. We are always looking to expand and grow the Positivity brand.
And Shar's not just doing service talk there. Every single one of our distributing partners and brokers started off that way. Hey, reached out. Hey, I have a market in this area. And we go, okay, let's see what we can do. So when you're selling water like this, basically community, business to business, you take all leads and you chase them down till they make sense. And all of our partners we have on our company right now that's helping with distribution, they all came in that way. Hey, I heard about you here. We're going to change all that by having money available to now have an active sales force that can go out and market and sell into certain regions of the country. We're going to have an active, sales manager, as opposed to just sitting back and collecting all these, connections and distributors. We're going to have to go out and start to, create our own sort of pipeline. And that's very exciting. So that's another use of proceeds. You can see that the ability to increase our presence in certain markets, the ability to increase in New York. City Trends goes to 575 stores. That sounds great to the average human being. That sounds like a lot of logistics to me. And yeah, it could be increased revenues. It will be increased revenues and profits, but that sounds like a lot of people that you got to start to hire So, and it's all exciting though. That's what I'm ready for. That's what I think this company's ready for. And I think that's what you'll see us use it. And I have every plans of being transparent about how we spend money, where we're going with it, and positivity and integrity. You saw it. We got to go to more conferences. They're going to start to open up. We got away with virtual conferences, but those are going to start opening up. You got to fly in. You got to talk to people face to face when you want to sell truckload orders. Same thing with positivity. They're growing. We have a lot of things in the pipe. We have some athletes that we're entertaining as well that wants to come on. I mean, there's a lot of events that we have planned this summer, marketing events around the country that'll be coming out. So all that stuff costs money, and that's part of this fundraise too.
Well, that's just a good segue, David, to my last question in these last 5 minutes as we wrap up. So can you just tell everybody on this call a little bit more about what the equity fundraising campaign is and what Star Walker Industries is offering, and, you know, just what our goals are?
Sure. So Star Walker has chosen to raise money to grow our brands as well as to build a plant through an equity crowdfunding portal. Equity crowdfunding is different than your traditional crowdfunding. Before, you would have what's called donation based, where you're basically asking people for money, and you're donating in money to them without anything in return. Maybe a good feeling, maybe a sticker, maybe a bottle or something. But in our case, we're actually looking for investors. We're not looking for donors. We're looking for people who want to put their money into what we're doing and invest into the future of bottled water. And through that, we're doing it through the WeFunder platform. There's some legal compliance that has to occur before your investment can be official. WeFunder has been a little bit more casual, I would say, about allowing you to release some information before you get to become actually public by filing that Form C. So we have timed our public offering to be around the same time as our Form C is filed, which is May 1st. However, that date could get moved back, and it's okay because we're going to do things right instead of doing them hurried. So we may move it back a week or two. We finished our financial reviews. We finished all of our legal things that we had to have in place. It's just a matter of sort of figuring the internal things out with WeFunder. But once we're ready to go live, the public will see it. There'll be ads out there. You'll see a lot. It'll be a lot different than just Dave's WeFunder. You know, I mean, Dave's Zooms and Dave's Facebook. When it goes live to the public, it'll be significant. Now, you should know too that Curl Mix, you can look them up on WeFunder. Curl Mix went live before they were ready. They raised up till they went live April 9th, and today's April 26th. They've raised $3.5 million, but they're not ready yet. The form, all of their legal compliance documents aren't ready yet, so they still have some waiting to do. So I think that I don't want that to happen. I want everybody to feel like when it goes public and it's out there and the public wants to invest, they're signing documents, they're ready to go. That's the way I am. So we might have to wait internally with our friends and family to do that. And by the way, if you've pledged money or you put money in as friends and family, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll be reaching out to you, each of you. They're just coming in all the time. So we're trying to keep up with the collection. No one has gotten any personalized messages for their investment yet. I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm just letting everybody know who has invested. I did not forget about you. I do acknowledge you. But as I said, WeFunder, they're a little bit looser sometimes, and how you communicate with those people matters. So we want to make sure we get the communication right. But before we go public, there will definitely be a communication of thanks officially from me to everybody who's pledged so far. I am overwhelmed by the support. I'm overwhelmed by the people who's expressing interest. They're supporting through buying merchandise. They're supporting by buying the water. They're supporting by investing. And that's really how this is going to work, is if we all start doing it that way. And again, we don't have to do this overnight. We don't have to sort of create this solution and make it work overnight, but we can start and can be part of something that starts something.
David, in the last 30 seconds, can you just tell us what the Zoom meeting is, a Zoom call is going to be about next week, Monday?
Yeah, next week we're going to talk manufacturing. If you like today, the pictureography, we're going to have the engineers in, the people who help put those machines together to make those very efficient bottles. And then they're going to also talk about their proprietary technology in this bottle and why this bottle is so much different than anything you've ever seen before. So we're going to get into the meat of manufacturing next week, and we'll continue to do weekly Zooms until people get tired of them or until we can't talk anymore. But For the time being, we'll see you next week. We'll get involved. You'll click the link, be able to sign up for next week's program. Prayers to everybody out there today. Have a fantastic day. Tomorrow's Reagan's birthday, my daughter. So say happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday, Reagan.
Happy 11th birthday. So anyway, have a fantastic week, everybody. I appreciate your time, your energy, listening in on Facebook or watching this on Zoom. Nothing's taken for granted. And I really do appreciate all your support. Our whole team here thanks you for everything. And until next week, remember to think positive, drink positivity.
Drink positivity. Bye, everyone.
All right, stop recording.